Welcome to the podcast that must not be named. I'm Luke.
And I'm Melissa.
And we are going through Chapter 5 of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, Diagon Alley. This chapter is 27 pages, 8.74% of this book.
Alright, so for the executive summary, I would like to start by thanking Luke for assigning me the longest chapter in this book.
You're welcome.
Harry wakes the next morning in the hut on the rock and thinks the night before must have been a dream, but finds himself covered in Hagrid's coat and an owl pecking at the window. He pays the owl and learns about the 3 kinds of wizard monies. He also finds out that his parents, unbeknownst to the Dursleys, left him money at the Wizard Bank, Gringotts, run by goblins in London. Hagrid also has to visit the bank for Dumbledore, so off they go in the Dursleys' boat since Hagrid flew there. As they travel, Harry learns that there is a Ministry of Magic to govern the magical world. Hagrid also reveals that while there are rumors of a dragon inside Gringotts, he, Hagrid, has always wanted a dragon of his very own. Harry finally looks at his supply list, none of which can be bought at your local Walmart or Target, and Hagrid takes him to London, but you have to know where to go. Their first stop is the Leaky Cauldron, where Harry experiences for the first time what being famous is like. After being bombarded with people dying to meet him, including his future teacher, Professor Quirrell, Harry and Hagrid escape out the back to a brick wall. And the brick wall got all wiggly and turned into an archway, leading to Diagon Alley. Diagon Alley is a shopping district for witches and wizards with a wide variety of stores. Many items are available for purchase, including cauldrons of all shapes and sizes, dragon liver, owls, flying broomsticks, bat spleens, and spellbooks. Amazed as he was, Harry was first led by Hagrid to Gringotts, the tall white building guarded by goblins wearing red and gold. A second door warned anyone fool enough to rob them to stay away. Hagrid gives the goblin at the desk Harry's safe key and asks about 713 with a letter from Dumbledore, and off they go, a goblin named Griphook in tow, on a rickety roller coaster ride that any 11-year-old would love but makes grown adults like Hagrid and myself queasy. First stop is Harry's vault, with so much gold and silver and bronze coins that Harry can't believe it's all his. Then, back to the speeding cart to Vault 713, which does not have a key, but opens at the goblin's touch. Inside is just a small package, and Hagrid grabs it without telling Harry anything. After the trip, Hagrid sends Harry to get school robes, or uniforms, at Madame Malcolm's Robes for All Occasions, while he goes for a drink. Harry goes in alone, but quickly meets an unnamed boy who makes Harry feel like he knows nothing. They are interrupted by Hagrid holding ice creams, and the boy proceeds to insult Hagrid. Harry leaves with his robes and talks to Hagrid about Quidditch, but we only learn that it is like soccer on brooms with 4 balls. A quick discussion that there are houses at Hogwarts, and Hagrid says that all the bad witches and wizards came out of the house called Slytherin. They continue shopping and buy books, a cauldron, scales, and a telescope. Then they get things from the apothecary, probably for potion making. Hagrid insists on buying Harry a birthday present, and they go to the Owl Emporium, and Harry picks out a snowy white owl. Last on the list is a wand, and Ollivander's is the place to go if you want the best wand. The wand maker, Mr. Ollivander, remembers every wand he ever sold, and rattles off both of Harry's parents' wand info. He then begins measuring and questioning Harry and proceeds to have him try out some wands. Nothing happens until Ollivander grabs a special box, and when Harry tries that wand, Holly and Phoenix Feather, 11 inches, Harry's arm grew warm and sparks flew. This was his wand. But it just so happened that the Phoenix Feather in the core of the wand came from a particular bird, and that bird only gave 2 feathers ever. And the other feather is inside the wand that killed Harry's parents and gave him his scar. Yep, Voldemort has the other Phoenix wand. Ta-da! At the end of the day, Harry worries that he is famous for something he doesn't remember, and he may not live up to the fame. Hagrid assures Harry that he will do fine at Hogwarts, and gives him the ticket for the Hogwarts train for September 1st, and Harry gets on the Underground to go home.
Long chapter.
Ugh.
Let's go through all of the characters that we met this chapter. First new character we met was Tom the bartender, who looks like a toothless walnut. Doris Crockford, who shakes Harry's hand multiple times, kept turning back around in the line to come back to him. Daedalus Diggle, who we've heard mention of before, but this is the first time we've actually met him directly.
First meeting direct, yes.
Professor Quirrell.
Who was very nervous.
Very nervous. Stutters. Ollivander, the wand maker.
Yes. A little creepy, that guy.
The drawling blonde boy in the robe shop.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't very nice.
No.
The snowy owl.
Yes.
Madame Malkin herself.
Yes.
And the goblin Griphook.
Yes. Do you notice we didn't have any characters who we didn't actually meet? There were no characters that
mentions without actually meeting. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. That's a first. There's been a lot of that.
A lot of mentions, not so many meetings. Today we got to meet a lot of people.
Along with that, we went to a lot of different locations.
Lots of places.
We went to Diagon Alley. We went to the Leaky Cauldron. We went to Flourish and Blots. We went to Gringotts. We went to Ilop's Owl Emporium. We went to the Apothecary, Ollivander's Wand Shop, and Madame Malkin's Rose for All Occasions. Not to mention the Underground there and back again.
Plus, we had a mention of King's Cross.
Yes, that's where the Hogwarts train ticket tells Harry to go to.
So I'm going to stop you there. If you had to go to any of these one locations, which one would you want to go to the most and why?
Flourish and Blots.
Oh, that was going to be my pick.
I'm a book nerd.
That's what I was going to say too. Darn it.
Leaky Cauldron would be a nice second choice as well. Maybe go to the bookshop, get a book, have a couple drinks.
Maybe I can see that. My least favorite would be the Owl Emporium, being not as much of an animal person as I am, so that would be probably my least likely place to go.
That's fair.
Okay. All right.
So, take us through some of the magicabulary that we went through in this chapter.
So the magicabulary, those things that are those JK inventions, we really focused a lot on the books because the titles here were just outstanding. The first book was The Standard Book of Spells, Grade 1 by Miranda Gossock. Then we have A History of Magic by Bathilda Bagshot, which is an awesome name. In general, the names of the authors JK comes up with are just outstanding. We have Magical Theory by Adalbert Waffling, which I love because I think of waffling as sort of coming up with ideas and changing between back and forth, and yet
flip-floppy,
and yet theory
magical
is theory. This is what it is.
Yeah, it's like you can't make up your mind on what it really means.
Then we have A Beginner's Guide to Transfiguration by Emmerich Switch. Transfiguration means to change the figure, and his last name is Switch because he switches back and forth. I love it. So the next one is 1000 Magical Herbs and Fungi by Phylida Spore. Spore, which is a fungus. Magical Drafts and Potions by Arsidious Jigger.
Right. Like arsenic in a jigger is like a little vial.
Yes. And Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them by Newt Scamander. Newt, which is an actual lizard, and Scamander, which is a play on the word salamander, I believe. I love that. And then, of course, we have The Dark Forces, A Guide to Self-Protection by Quentin Trimble.
Yeah.
Which makes me feel like tremble, like, ooh, I'm so scared.
Or it almost seems like Professor Quirrell maybe had a reference in that book.
Yes.
So there's actually one more book that we didn't even write down. Curses and Counter Curses. Bewitch your friends and befuddle your enemies with the latest revenges, hair loss, jelly legs, tongue-tying, and much, much more by Professor Vindictus Viridian.
Vindictus, like vindictive?
Yeah.
Well, and that is the longest book title ever.
Yeah, there's 2 different colons in there, I think.
I see 1 colon and parentheses.
Parentheses, maybe that's what I was thinking.
Yes.
But
it's a long one. The only other magicabulary that we have in this particular chapter is the name of a particular brand of flying broomstick, and that would be the Nimbus 2000, which we see a group of boys sort of ogling over in the window of the Quidditch shop.
Mm-hmm. Kind of seems like it's like a high-speed motorcycle that kids are just trying to get out, or maybe like a fast bike, you know.
Maybe. Like, it's the cool new toy. I want the cool new toy. Okay, Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started with our in-depth analysis, and I'm going to start with my first thought. And this has bugged me since the first time I read it. How did the Dursleys get off the island? It's always bothered me. Harry and Hagrid take their boat. They're on a hut, on a rock, in the sea. How do they get home?
Well, with that new pigtail, maybe that'll help Dudley swim, kind of like a little propeller. Other than that, I don't know.
Okay, listeners, I'm really going to need your help with this one. It has bothered me for years. We're talking now 16 years. 16 years I have been bothered. How do they get off the rock? If I could have a good theory or an answer, I will feel much better.
The only thing I can think of is the guy who rents the shack out and the boat knows that they're out there.
But the boat comes back.
Right. But it's not like he has to return the keys.
Right.
That's the only thing I can think of is he was just out there. I mean, we don't know how far out to sea it was. We assume
but it was enough time for Hagrid and Harry to have a pretty in-depth conversation.
But is it out of eyesight?
I don't know.
Maybe the guy sees the boat there, and obviously the Dursleys are there, hands waving on the shore. Excuse me!
Help me!
So,
my only other thought is maybe because Hagrid did use magic to speed up the boat, maybe he magicked it back.
Sent it back.
To the rock?
Yeah, maybe.
Don't think he would. He has no real reason to help them out, but okay.
Yeah, I've gone on enough about how much I dislike Hagrid right now.
I need a good answer for getting them home, because not that I like them, but I feel bad for them being stuck on a rock.
You don't feel like Vindictus Viridian.
No, I'm not that bad. I don't need to curse your enemies and befuddle your friends or whatever. Okay, so question 2. I'm all about traveling. My theme for the day is traveling is, how does Harry get back home? It says he takes the Underground home, but the Underground does not go all the way to Privet Drive. So does the London Underground go as far as his home? Does it go close to his home? Does he catch a cab? How does he pay for the cab? Does he call the Dursleys? Do they come get him? Are they home from the rock yet to be able to pick him up because it's that same day? What happens?
So it says they take the Underground to Paddington Station. That's where he has a hamburger with Hagrid, and then that's where Hagrid leaves him.
Okay.
I guess it goes along with, how did Hagrid and Harry get to Paddington Station in the first place? I mean, I'm sure they could figure out how to take a cab, but Harry doesn't have Muggle money to use to pay.
Unless Paddington Station is close enough to, they walked. I don't know.
Walking initially wouldn't be a big deal. Walking after he's got this huge trunk full of equipment and an owl cage and all this other stuff.
So I was confused. They went to Paddington after shopping at Diagon Alley?
Yes.
Then I'm sure it's just a station in London. I'm sure it's just around the corner. It's probably the closest, or they hit a station that's around the corner from the Leaky Cauldron, hopped on, and then got off to eat at this place.
Mm-hmm.
I think my concern is more, how did they get to Diagon Alley in the first place? How did they get from the place
from the
boat to the Underground to ride to Diagon Alley? And then once he was on the Underground coming home after eating, at what point did he get off, and then did he walk home? He's 11.
Right. Maybe there was, maybe he was just so excited about the whole day that he maybe walked 30 miles and didn't even realize it because his head was just spinning.
With an owl and his spell books and a cauldron and a wand who knows. Okay. Again, listeners, if anybody has any answers on the travel concerns in chapter 5, I'd love to hear them. And my last thought for this chapter. So the boy in Madame Malkin's, who was just delightful, let me tell you, he was a treat to meet. The first kid Harry meets, and he's kind of this pompous jerk. But my favorite thing that he does is dismissing Harry's dead parents. Oh, what are your parents? Oh, they're dead. Oh, sorry. Whatever. Really sensitive.
Yeah, he's really not very nice to Harry. He's kind of maybe not so much not nice, but very indifferent to Harry. Definitely doesn't seem to care that his parents are dead. I don't think he's met anybody. It doesn't seem like he's met anybody that has dead parents, so he almost doesn't seem like he knows how to talk to. Because when you're a kid and you find out that a friend, another kid's parents are dead, it's a really awkward thing because you haven't talked to anybody like that before. So that is a tough. I mean, I can see him almost brushing it off as almost if I show no emotion, it's less emotion filled. Like, you know,
And I
it's
feel like
the easier way out.
and I could agree with you if that kid had shown any more sort of empathy for others or any kind of open-mindedness at all, but it was, I'm going to be in this house. I would hate to be here. I'm going to have this. My mom's doing this for me. My dad's doing this for me. I'm going to have that. It was
Sure.
he seemed very privileged.
Very, yeah.
And if, and I'm not saying everybody who's ever privileged has that sort of attitude, but it's sort of the stereotypical privileged attitude.
Sure.
And it seemed combined with the complete brush off of the dead parents.
Yeah, I agree. Taking it all in one full context, you get a different feel than if you just took his blankness over the empathy, the
lack of empathy. Yeah, I'll go with you on that. Okay.
But
right, so,
yeah, I would prefer not to meet that kid again. That'd be
me too.
Clearly, he's going to the same school with Harry, so
yeah, and I have no idea how many kids will be there. Like we know nothing.
Yeah, who knows? They might be the only two this year.
That would be unfortunate for Harry. Oh, goody, I'm stuck with you.
Yeah. You had some pretty good notes. I didn't really think about all of those. My first note is the brick combination to get through to Diagon Alley is 3 up and 2 across. Mm-hmm. I don't know. That's always stuck in my head as either a neat little trivia piece or just kind of a. It's kind of cool that you have to go from the point that they start with and go diagonal up and over to where the brick that the password is.
Nope, never thought about it.
And obviously Diagon Alley spells out diagonally.
Yep.
So it's cool that she built that right into the passcode or the magical passcode to get into this.
That's really funny. I never thought about it that way. Yeah. I personally was always just annoyed that they had to do it at all.
Yeah, I always liked it.
Well, my thought was, okay, so they're at the Leaky Cauldron, and Harry says in there, it almost looks like people's eyes, as they're walking past, their eyes slide past it. They don't even see it. And he wouldn't have noticed it even until Hagrid pointed it out. So
that trick of whatever's going on should be enough to get in.
Right, and then you get in, and you've got... a bar. So you're telling me there's another step to get in? And what if, like, I am a first-year wizard like Harry, and I don't have a Hagrid to take me shopping, and they say, go here, and I'm here. What do I do? Mm-hmm. I don't have a wand to do that.
Right.
Because I have to get in to buy one. It kind of annoyed me, but I like your theory better. That's cooler than me just being annoyed by it.
Yeah, I don't know, it's always just kind of stuck with me because that's really, I mean, I kind of do like the 2-step process to get in because you kind of get a little bit more mysticalness, mysticality as you're going through. And you meet all these people that clearly know Harry, but if you're just going through, I mean, someone could accidentally stumble into this bar. I mean, you're not supposed to.
Right, but
most of the muggles passing by don't seem to notice it at all. But
you
there's
never
a chance that they could.
Right.
So if they do get in, you got to have something else to prevent them from stumbling through after having a few
I'm with you.
few drinks there. Are all magical folk as harsh against muggles as the boy in Madame Malkin's shop and seemingly Hagrid?
They sure haven't set up a good outlook of muggles.
Yeah.
As you get from them.
Here's that common, you think?
I don't know. I have never ever read these books before this time and thought that it was so anti-muggle. Mm-hmm. I never thought it that way.
Mugglist.
It was anti-muggle. Because it was just sort of showing the otherness of this world. So, and I'm going to go back to the last episode. I still don't agree with you necessarily that it's a negative connotation, at least on the part of Hagrid. Because he's not blatantly said, I don't like muggles, or, oh, they shouldn't do this, or, oh, muggles aren't allowed, or anything. He's just, like we said last time, ignorant
but
about
now
them.
We have
he knows
met
nothing.
Somebody who
but now
clearly doesn't want the other kind in.
So this kid, as opposed to Hagrid being so completely just unknowledgeable, if you will, he specifically says, when they're talking about Harry's dead parents, and he goes, oh, sorry. The other not sounding sorry at all. But they were our kind, weren't they? Well, they were a witch and wizard, if that's what you mean. I really don't think they should let the other sort in, do you? They're just not the same. They've never been brought up to know our ways. Some of them have never even heard of Hogwarts until they get the letter. Imagine. I think they should keep it in the old wizarding families. What's your surname, anyway?
And then he gets cut off.
It's very judgmental. It's very stick to our kind. It's very they're not allowed.
Directly anti-Muggle.
Right.
Blatantly.
It should be our way. It should be our thing. And outsiders should not be allowed in.
Right. And obviously this is quite a bit different than what I was getting to with Hagrid.
I know.
And I'm going to make that extra clear that I don't think Hagrid is like this little kid. Definitely. Right. But the only two magical folk that
we've had major
that Harry has major interaction with have been overall pretty negative.
Yes. Now, I'm going to tag off that because I just had a thought. What 11-year-old talks like that about other people?
One that was raised that way?
I was going to say, you're not born thinking that.
Yeah.
You're not born thinking that you're better than others. You're not born thinking you're kind.
You're taught
you
to
are
think
taught
that way.
Those things. So what does that say about this kid's parents?
Yeah.
I already don't like them.
We'll get back to his parents, I think.
Yes, but I've decided I already don't like them simply because of the way they're raising their son.
Yeah, definitely.
It's very close-minded, and those kinds of things bother me.
So I think we are. And another funny thing about his parents is
my father's next door buying my books, and mother's up the street looking at wands. Then I'm going to drag them off to look at racing brooms.
We learned from Ollivander that the wand chooses the wizard.
Mm-hmm.
Is this boy's mother trying to buy a wand for him? Or is she just someone who is kind of an aficionado of wands and just likes looking at them?
So it says that his daddy is buying him books. Thanks, Daddy. I'm assuming Mommy probably went and bought some of the other stuff first. It was like, okay, I'll go get your cauldron and then I will meet you at Ollivander's. And maybe she's just like looking, and I am again doing completely prejudice on my part and assuming that I know these people just from, the 3 lines the boy has or whatever. And she's probably like, my son needs one that is this, and my son needs one that is. So less picking one out as opposed to giving Ollivander the parameters under which he must provide a wand.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm making that. That's headcanon. That's not book. That's just inside my own little headspace. What I think happened. So that's what headcanon means. So in my head, she's down there giving orders.
It is kind of funny to think about her just, twirling around different wands, just looking at them, not really buying them, but it's just kind of funny.
Well, and do you notice, they talk about your first wand. Ollivander talks about buying your first one. He says, you have your mother's eyes. It seems only yesterday she was in here herself, buying her first wand.
So did she buy multiple?
Well, that's my question.
Can you buy multiple?
Are wands a lifetime guarantee kind of with you? Or as
Is it like the starter wand?
Starter kit? Like you have your beater wand, like your beater car, and then the beat up one, and then as you get older, you have the standard family model for when you have kids. And when you get older, you can get the sports car wand.
Yeah,
the
Lamborghini,
right?
Wands.
Or is it
more like here's your novice wand, here's your amateur wand, and here's your expert wand?
Or is it as you grow and change? Because I'm a completely different person
than when you were 11.
Than when I was 11, or even when I first started reading these books when I was 21. So yeah, I'm old. It's okay. So is it as you change, all of a sudden your wand doesn't work as well? Almost like a pair of glasses. Like I have a pair of glasses that's
your magical needs change,
right?
Which makes sense, and your personality changes, as you grow up.
Right, and some people probably still use the same wand or drive the same car or have the same pair of glasses or whatever. If it still works for you, great.
For sure.
It's like people with their phones today.
Right.
Some people will keep the same phone forever because they love it and that's my phone. But then all of a sudden they get a new phone. They're like, oh my gosh, this is so much better. But I didn't know, because you just don't know that you need the upgrade or whatever.
Or you get a new one and you hate it because it's
I
so
want
different.
my old phone back.
Wands really are like cell phones. Ollivander is a man who seems to thoroughly enjoy his craft.
To a level of creepdom.
Yeah,
Like,
almost.
he creepy likes his craft.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like walking into the comic book store. I mean, it really is. Like, I've walked into a comic book store to buy stuff for my daughters, which that in and of itself is a weird thing. Hi, I need to buy a Christmas present for my 8-year-old daughter at a comic book store.
Right,
So.
and you're talking to somebody who's just absolutely passionate about
Right,
that.
and I'm like, my kid likes Black Widow. They don't make Black Widow stuff. I need a Black Widow something. Give me something about Black Widow. And they're like, well, you need, and I'm just overwhelmed at
right,
like the sheer vastness of this knowledge, which I didn't even know existed before.
right.
It's a little overwhelming. Not in a bad way, but just in a, man, that's a lot of stuff I don't know.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I see that with Ollivander for sure.
Yes.
He's very, very passionate about what he does,
And nobody else knows anything.
not comparatively for
Especially
sure.
as an 11-year-old boy who, this is his first experience in the magical world ever, and that's the guy
Right.
who's going to help him pick out, like, his tool.
And in contrast to that, Madame Malkin seems fairly inattentive.
Yes.
A
Yes.
full, I don't even know what to call it, conversation between this boy and Harry happens, and it's, I don't know, borderline inappropriate for what little kids should be
Yes.
talking about. And where's Madame Malkin at?
Right. Like, she says, okay, come over here. They stand there and have a conversation. Or sorry, Harry stands there and has a conversation with the boy. And the next thing you know, he's done. So, first of all, let's point out
she
that
had to be standing there.
the assistant that was helping the little boy, the other boy, must be a much less competent witch than Madame Malkin, because he was there longer and still wasn't done, but Malkin got Harry done faster. So she might be inattentive, but she's probably good at her job. That's you done, my dear. And Harry, not sorry for an excuse to stop talking to the boy, hopped down from the footstool.
Yeah, definitely. Madame Malkin might be good at her craft, not good at keeping an eye on little kids.
Maybe she's deaf.
Maybe she's deaf.
Or, like, just hard of hearing. Like, maybe she can't hear, and that's why she's a seamstress, and that's what she does. And most
tunnel
kids,
vision.
and
Maybe
most-
she's really good at her craft. Maybe she's just so
Right.
focused on it.
well, and most kids usually come in with their parents. It's not her job to keep an eye on them. It's not her fault that at the same time she has a kid whose parents are more concerned about keeping him happy and giving him whatever he wants to stay with him and observe him, and a little boy whose parents are dead at the same time. So,
Yeah.
benefit of the doubt, although I do agree, maybe she should have jumped in at some point.
Speaking of Hagrid bringing ice cream,
Oh.
magical ice cream sounds awesome, doesn't
I love
it?
magical ice cream.
We
Does
don't
it
get a
count?
real description, or we do. It's raspberry and chopped nuts, I believe.
I don't like raspberry, but I will definitely take some ice cream.
But I would imagine that magical ice cream is a little extra special.
Chocolate and raspberry with chopped nuts. So this is now the third iced treat that Harry has gotten in the book.
Yeah, after not having any
Forever.
for
Ever.
his entire life.
Right.
Doris Crockford shakes Harry's hand multiple times. She was committed to getting her FaceTime in with Harry.
Well, it's almost like she's stocking up.
Yeah.
I'm gonna bank all of my hair so I can say, hey, remember the time I shook Harry Potter's hand? Oh, and this other time when I shook Harry Potter's
It was
hand?
3 seconds later, but
It
yeah.
doesn't matter. I've shaken Harry Potter's hand 8 times. Nobody else can say that.
No one else can say
No.
that. Nope. How did Harry's parents get so wealthy, do you think? Because there were mounds of gold and silver and bronze in that vault.
Okay, so I think Harry's parents got wealthy. I'm gonna assume it's gonna come from Harry's father. Because if it came from Lily, I feel like we would know.
Yeah, Petunia would have been a
Right.
lot more aware of
Right.
of
Like
that.
if it was family money from Lily, then Petunia would have gotten some.
At least a portion for sure.
Right. And if
yeah.
Petunia's the oldest, she would have gotten all of it, and which means Lily didn't. I don't know at this point which one is older or younger. So
Yeah, we don't know.
no, I'm not sure. So it doesn't really bode to me that it's that. So either A, James Potter was a very successful something in his incredibly short life, but it was a pretty short life. Like, they were killed relatively young, you would assume. They only had one son. You would think, got to be in there at the very late 20s, probably more like mid or early. So to accumulate that much wealth in employment seems unlikely.
We don't know how much what the average salary of wizards are, though.
No, we don't. I will give you that. Here's my other thought. I'm going to go back to the drawling boy. He says it should keep in the old wizarding families. I assume that there's money in old wizarding families. Okay?
Yeah, that's probably fair.
He the drawling boy, voice drawling, is of money. You would assume he's going to make his dad buy him a racing broom. Kid's got money.
He's got the heirs of a
Yes.
well-to-do.
Yes. Then he asks, "What's your surname?" And he said, "Oh, are your parents like us?" "Oh, yes, they were a witch and wizard." So I think he assumes that since they were a witch and wizard, they were probably from those old wizarding families, giving under that assumption that old wizarding families have money. So in my head, I almost think, given how young the Potters were when they died, given that if it was Lily's money, it'd be Muggle money, because she was Muggle born, and Petunia would have part of it, it'd have to come from James's parents, right?
Mhm.
Which then tells me they're dead, because if it's Harry's money, and he lived with the Dursleys, not only are his parents dead, but like his whole extended family on his wizarding side, if you will, are gone too.
Which we do know that from Dumbledore says this is the only family that he
Right.
has left. So the whole Potter side, you would think, is
You know, it took me
is
years
all
to
gone.
like figure that out. Like it took me a long time to figure that out, like to really sink in that it's not just his, like he has nothing,
nothing. It really
Right.
is only the Dursleys that are
Right.
available,
which is sad.
which is sad. So on a lighter note, Harry quickly decides when he sees the title of Vindictus Viridian's book that he wants to learn a few curses to try out on Dudley when he gets back. Hagrid just kind of, he doesn't really say, he doesn't say that's a bad idea. He just says, you probably can't do them right now.
He says, "I'm not saying that's not a good idea, but you're not to use magic in the Muggle world except in very special circumstances." So it's saying he's not allowed to do it. "And anyway, you couldn't work any of them curses yet. You'll need a lot more study before you get to that level." So 1, you're not allowed, and 2, you're not good enough yet.
Right.
However, someday.
Yeah. I'm just saying,
Get it by it later.
Hagrid didn't say it's a bad idea.
No, it's just not, it's not the best time.
Hagrid really wouldn't say that about it because he already did magic against Dudley.
Also true.
So he's
Put it this way, if he's telling him no, not right now,
Yeah.
he's not doing it to be like the parenting figure if that's not a good idea. He's really saying like, hold off for a little bit.
Yeah.
Wait till you get better at it. Really curse him. You can curse him real good later. We're going to go ahead and start with our 5 burning questions. My first one is, how did a phoenix only give 2 feathers? What is the system for donating such magical core things like the unicorn string or the dragon's, whatever the dragon's thing is, dragon heartstring, or the phoenix feather? And what's wrong with this bird? Is it dead? Is it stingy? Why doesn't it give more feathers?
I don't know. It's it seems like a bird has, could probably give a couple extra feathers here or there, but maybe Ollivander, maybe it's difficult to work with, maybe phoenix feathers are a little bit extra special and
Maybe.
that they are difficult to work with, so he doesn't use them all that often.
And is there like a limit on the number of times you can make a donation? Like,
Does
each
it-
animal only gives, like, can only give one time. So you have lots of unicorn hairs that you can pull, or lots of unicorns to choose from to pull, but each individual unicorn can only donate once.
Right. Or does it, maybe even like sap that animal's magical power a little bit?
I don't know.
It takes a little bit of their
Right.
magic with them, but maybe it takes a long time for it to regrow or recharge kind of thing. I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know. All right. So my next question is, why would Hagrid buy Harry a birthday present after already making him a cake? Especially because, as far as we know, to Hagrid, Harry is only just another kid going to the school where he works. Does he buy gifts for all of his students? Or all of these students at the school?
I'm sure he doesn't. I think Hagrid has a pretty good feel on how terrible Harry's life has been up until this point, and the fact that it's pretty clear Harry's never been treated well, specifically on or around his birthday, that, he feels like Harry deserves better, and he's just kind of taking care of him for the first time in Harry's entire life, And it was Hagrid that dropped him off at the Dursley, so they have, in Hagrid's mind, they have some history, and
True.
so he is extra special to Hagrid, and I think that's fine. And in this case,
Well, it sure seemed like when he first was introduced to Harry, again, as an 11-year-old, that he had a special connection to his parents also.
Mm-hmm.
And so, they were his friends, and then conversely, Harry was his friend, and then all of a sudden he lost those friends, and so, yeah, maybe that's...
So I think it's reasonable.
Okay. All right, so my next question is, why is Ollivander so creepy? He's creepy.
I think we kind of touched on it. And,
He's creepy.
And Harry made a good point where he said...
Harry shivered. He wasn't sure he liked Mr. Ollivander too much.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely sounds creepy. And I think it comes down to he is probably shut up in his shop a lot of the time. He doesn't really get out. He's making all of these wands.
Not the best social skills.
Probably not the best social skills. And he's usually more focused on just his wand, his wand lore stuff.
True.
And I'm sure he's one of those eccentric creative types that
comic book store
that you just have to roll with it, and they are easily the best at what they do.
Yes.
And so you just kind of put up with any quirkiness.
Yeah. I'll be interested to see as Harry gets older if Ollivander comes back. If we may not ever see him again, because
if his perception of him changes as Harry gets older, and it's not his first time in the Wizarding world. Because
I feel like that sometimes I'll go somewhere new and have like an immediate impression, good, bad, or otherwise, and then you go back, whether it's the next day or a year later, and you're like, oh, this is not as big as I thought. This is not as confusing as I thought. This is not as whatever, because it's become more familiar, and it's not so overwhelming. Right, and the mystique of it all is sort of
broken.
Yes.
Sure.
All right, question 4 is, what stores would you want to visit if you could get into Diagon Alley?
I think I'm going to stick with my Flourish and Blots, the bookstore answer first. Although it would be kind of cool to maybe work a summer internship with Ollivander just to learn more about wands. I think that'd be pretty fun to do for a little while.
I can see that. So I want to go to the store. This store doesn't have a name, but what's mentioned is the store that was selling several broomsticks. That's where I want to go because I want to fly. Plus Flourish and Blots because I like books. But I think it doesn't have a name, but I think I want to go to the store selling the Nimbus 2000. Yes.
Yeah, that'd be pretty fun for sure. Kind of like the sporting section.
Yes. Which is funny because I am not at all sporty. I am the least sporty of both, my siblings and of all of, my children and my husband at my house. I am the least sporty of everybody that I am related to. So it's hysterical. That's what I want. But I want to fly. That sounds like fun. And the last question is, what are your first impressions of the boy from the robe shop in 10 words or less?
He is not very nice at all to muggles.
That's 9. Good job.
Okay.
I said or less. Okay. It doesn't have to be exact. It's okay.
Yeah, he's not very nice and very pompous feeling.
Yes. I was going to go with stuck up, judgmental, closed-minded. 3.
Fair enough.
Moving on to our chapter superlatives. This is the part where we give our favorites, and we're going to start with our favorite line of the episode. Mine comes from Ollivander's when Harry is being measured for his wand, and it says, Harry suddenly realized that the tape measure, which was measuring between his nostrils, was doing this on its own. I like this for a couple of reasons. One, I like the idea of the inanimate object doing something on its own. That's the first time we really see a magicked item acting independently. 2, I want to know what unit they're measuring in. I'm assuming it's millimeters because nothing else is small enough to get that little space. And 3, how does it record the measurements?
Right. Is it just write itself down at the other end of the tape?
Like a little quill.
It's measuring it at one end, and then the other end as it trails to the floor, just like sitting on a notebook with a pen.
Or is there just an inanimate, like a pen, an animated quill on parchment that, as the measurement's taken, it just writes on its own, not attached to, but sort of like an uplink.
Yeah, telepathically almost.
Yes. And then
telemagically.
Last part of this. What does the distance between your nostrils have to do with your wand usage?
I don't know. That's why I want to have a summer internship with Ollivander to find that
Okay,
out.
so anyone who has had that summer internship at Ollivander's, please tell me the usefulness of the measurement between your nostrils. Thank you.
My favorite line was from Hagrid. Harry was really worried about, not knowing anything going into school and was pretty down on himself. And Hagrid just tells him, "Don't you worry, Harry. You'll learn fast enough. Everyone starts at the beginning at Hogwarts. You'll be just fine. Just be yourself."
Aww.
It was sweet. It was actually pretty good advice for anybody, and it was exactly what Harry really needed to hear right there.
And Luke said something nice about Hagrid.
I did.
And we didn't pick a funny line for the first time
I know.
ever. That's fantastic.
So that was my favorite line. I thought Hagrid did a good job being a good voice of inspiration for Harry to kind of calm him down and give him a little confidence going forward.
Moving on to the chapter MVPs. My chapter MVP for this chapter, hands down, is Hagrid. He is the mentor Harry never knew he needed. He is the right person at the right time. I feel like if you had somebody more knowledgeable or like an official teacher, it might have overwhelmed Harry a little bit. But here's this adult who can lead Harry through these places without putting sort of that adult look on a kid. Hagrid still can think like a kid and understand how a kid feels and does a good job of leading Harry in the right places and directing him in a different way, like the Vindictus book saying, "Oh, well, no, I don't think so," without being judgmental about it. Just very supportive. And I think that's exactly what Harry needed in his first real experience in a magical setting. Because can you imagine how overwhelmed Harry must have been at that moment, that whole day? And he had, luckily, like this big giant teddy bear to guide him through it.
Yeah, it was a pretty good matchup, I think.
Mm-hmm.
For this chapter's honorable mention, I actually just changed this the last minute. I'm going to go with Doris Crockford. She was just so committed to shaking Harry's hand in the Leaky Cauldron. I'm actually wearing my Leaky Cauldron shirt in honor of this chapter.
You're welcome.
It was a gift from Melissa. And if I go to the Leaky Cauldron, I hope Doris Crockford's there to shake my hand.
There you go. I'm curious, who was your old honorable mention?
I had Daedalus Diggle, mainly because we had heard about him before.
Right. And I believe he was one, I really truly believe he was one of the guys that Harry had met before knowing he was a wizard. I'm almost positive.
No, he definitely met.
Yes.
He bowed his head or shook his hand. He was the one that shook his hand in a shop.
Mm-hmm.
And he was one of the guys that disappeared shortly after. I actually thought he may have been the wizard that Vernon runs into at lunchtime that very first day.
I agree with you.
There's actually a color connection where I believe Daedalus Diggle is wearing purple here, or in the previous time we heard about Harry meeting him, he was wearing purple. Mm-hmm. And the wizard, or what we're now assuming was a wizard in the very first chapter that Vernon ran into, was wearing a violet hat. And it might be a stretch, but there is definitely a chance that we met Daedalus Diggle a few times already.
You bowed to me once in a shop, he remembers. Yep. A little man in a top hat was talking to the old bartender. I assume that's Daedalus. It doesn't say he's...
Maybe it's the other two times.
Right, but he is wearing a hat. Mm-hmm. Oh, no, it says Daedalus Diggle's top hat fell off in excitement, so he is wearing the top hat. Then, a tiny man in a violet top hat had bowed to him once while out shopping with Petunia and Dudley. We can assume from that, since Daedalus Diggle is the same one who bowed to him, he was wearing a top hat when he bowed to him when he was out shopping. He's wearing a top hat now in the Leaky Cauldron. Therefore, I assume the top hat's still violet. Yes?
Yep.
Okay.
"Sorry," he grunted as the tiny old man stumbled and almost fell. It was a few seconds before Mr. Dursley realized that the man was wearing a violet cloak.
Yes.
It is a stretch, but
seeing as how we haven't met very many people, and to have 3 different mentions of somebody wearing violet,
and we do know
and they're all little.
We do know that Daedalus Diggle is the one up in Kent that did the fireworks. Yep. McGonagall said so.
Maybe he's not the same guy who ran into Vernon.
Well, we don't know where Vernon works. He could work in Kent.
Or he could live in Kent and just be wandering around wherever town the Grunnings firm is. I assume London? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just saying it's possible.
It is possible. Shooting stars down in Kent. I bet that was Daedalus Diggle. He never had much sense. Okay.
So, random, but because of all of those, that's why I had Daedalus Diggle.
I see. But at the last minute, you changed to the handshaker.
Yep, sure did.
Okay. All right. Any other miscellaneous thoughts before we continue?
I don't think so.
You do have something here. Oh, no, this is mine.
This is your miscellaneous thought.
That's right, my miscellaneous thought. I really want a wand.
I really want an owl.
You can have an owl. I want a wand. I want a real wand, one that works.
I would prefer a wand over an owl.
Uh-huh. I want a wand that I can just, magic the laundry done.
Yeah. Hey, grass cut.
Hey, papers graded.
Yeah.
Bam. Be awesome.
That would be sweet.
So, ladies and gentlemen, as always, we appreciate you listening here with us after our 5th chapter of The Sorcerer's Stone. As always, if you have any questions or comments, you can find us on Twitter at NotNamedPodcast. You can also email us at
thepodcastthatmustnotbenamed@gmail.com.
Or you can find our website at thepodcastthat.com. The next episode will be our 5-chapter recap where we talk about what's happened so far. Possibly some listener feedback if we were to have any at that time. We really like you. And then we open up the unrestricted section where we talk about any spoilers, any future connections. Basically, we open up the entire canon of the series, and that is up for grabs talking. If you have not read the series, we will give you a heads up. We recommend turning us off at that time so we don't ruin the series for you. Any of our longtime readers who've read it over and over, feel free to join in on our conversation. Or you can just follow along in 2 weeks and come back for our Chapter 6 recap when we hit Chapter 6.
The Journey from Platform 9 3/4.
We'll see you in a week. Thanks.